In this video, I'm going to give you the 6 must-have parts of any client agreement that you create from this point on. If you do this right, not only are you going to scare away all those nightmare clients that you didn't want to work with anyways, not only are you going to protect your assets, but you're also going to impress the clients that you want to actually work with most. Now, if you're thinking through like, what is impressive about a client agreement or a client contract? If that sounds weird to you, it's probably because you've just been Googling like a client contract template and you found something like this, something that's just black and white paper. There's like capital letters and blanks and it's just really ugly and intimidating and all in legalese. If that's the kind of client agreement that you've sent out, or maybe you haven't sent out any kind of client agreement because you don't want to send some legal jargon document like this video is going to be for you, because I'm going to show you how to actually make a beautiful one that's impressive with imagery and videos and written in plain English, and something that's not going to just scare off all your ideal clients. And then I'm going to give you my template. If that sounds good, let's go. Let me ask you a quick question. When you get a new client, what do you typically do first with that client? Do you send them an email letting them know what to expect? Do you just start working with them instantly? Do you just put them on your calendar? Like, what is your actual workflow with that? Before I even start this video, I would love to know in the comments what your actual workflow is immediately after getting that new client, meaning you've collected a deposit or some sort of payment and now it's set in stone. What is your workflow? In my workflow, as soon as I collect the deposit, my immediate thing to do from there is send a client agreement to get signed. And I'm going to go into the specifics of the 6 parts of what should go into a client agreement. But the gist of it is this. It's a document that you send your clients going over what to expect, going over certain things that they need to know, and making sure you're communicating things up front so there are no miscommunications or misaligned expectations moving forward with the project. In most cases, at least in America, when someone gets sued, especially in a client freelancer relationship, if a lawsuit comes up or some sort of litigation comes up, it's almost always because there was a miscommunication involved between the client and what they expected to get from the money that they paid the freelancer or the person that they're working with. And this is where a client agreement is really helpful for not only protecting you legally, but making sure that those expectations are aligned from the very start so that you never get to the point where you're so contentious with your client that they want to sue you. Not only this, but it helps you put boundaries up in place with your clients before you even begin, because you're setting expectations of what's acceptable and what is not acceptable. If you get this right, just like I said at the beginning of this video, it's going to weed out those nightmare clients, those clients that are vampires. They're sucking your soul away. They're taking up your time and mental bandwidth and energy. It's going to take those people away and just leave the people that you love working with, the people that are a pleasure to work with. You're going to have more time to spend on those people. So with all that being said, let's just dive into my client agreement. I'm going to show you the 6 parts involved and give you a rough idea on how to write your own. And if you don't have time to sit through this whole video, you can just go to sixfigurecreative.com/agreement. The link's at the bottom of this video, and it's also under this video in the description if you want to find that. You can download my template at any point throughout this video. You don't have to sit through this whole thing. So here is the client agreement that I created for the company that I started this year called Good Fortune Media. This is a podcast production agency. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of this, because if you look at this just from top to bottom, this looks and feels so much better than that gross template I showed you at the beginning of this video. And if you've ever looked up client agreement templates, they're all disgusting. So just by scrolling through that, does it already feel a little bit better, a little more impressive? Second of all, I actually put a video in this. You see below on this video, this is just one I quickly filmed for this, because I just realized as I was finalizing the content for this video you're watching now, I realized I could actually embed videos to this tool that I'm using, which again, if you want this tool that I'm using, if you want this template I'm using, just go to sixfigurecreative.com/agreement. You'll get all of this. Talk about a personal feel when you can have a video created either specifically for that client or at least a general one. This is just a general one that's meant for anyone who I send this client agreement to. It should work for them regardless of which client it is. This just feels so much more professional, so much more personal, and it still has all the elements needed for a really effective, high value client agreement. So let's dive into the 6 must-have parts of a client agreement. The first one is identifying information for everyone involved. In this section, in here I put that this is about as legalese as we get on the client agreement. It's just the legal name and the addresses of both me and the client that I'm making this agreement with. For anyone that's involved, if it's multiple companies or if it's multiple individuals, everyone has to be listed on this part of the agreement. So that's the first must-have section, is the identifying information of everyone involved. The second must-have section is the project scope and details. This is really where the disagreements happen the most with any client, is not really understanding what's involved, what's inside the scope of the project and what is outside of the scope of the project. And again, I do this in plain English, easy to understand. Part 1, what's included in the price. This is specific to you. No matter what industry you're in, you'll have something that you'll put in here, whether you're a wedding videographer or a music producer or a videographer. As a podcast production company, this is the stuff that we provide our clients and we do for our clients. I listed it all here in, again, plain English with a little bit of information under each one of these just to clarify what it is. The second part is, this is just important. The second part, and this is just as important, is what's not included in the price. We don't provide talent, the podcasting talent. We don't manage paid media accounts. We don't manage social media. There's just certain things that we don't do. We have to make sure we put it in here so that there's no disagreements. Over time, as you learn the things that people thought they were getting that they're not actually getting, this is where you start putting those things in here so that there are no misaligned expectations as you're setting up the relationship from the very start with the client. They know that these are not included because they signed this document. Also within here is part 3. What happens if you want to add services that aren't included? I put information on there. What happens if they want something I don't do, something that's outside of the scope of work? And then the fourth part, when it comes to the project scope and details for this project, is, then this is specific to me, is project workflow. When I'm working with other businesses, I'm working with businesses in this company who want to launch podcasts. I don't want to be bogged down by their own processes and tools. Everything has to be done within our processes and our tools. So our project management systems, our spreadsheets, our project management tools, our podcast hosting, everything is within our systems, and that allows us to systemize and not have to go through a gatekeeper, which is our client. This is also for file sharing, which is a huge part of this entire process for us. So that's the second part. The project scope and details is detailing all of the stuff so, again, that our expectations are aligned from the very start. The third is the project timeline. This is another area that people can mess up if they don't really understand what the timeline is going to look like from the very start of the project. If they think something's going to go faster or not, or something that they're going to have more time to do, you need to make sure they have this from the very beginning, again, so that there are no misaligned expectations, so that they're not mad at you. So on here, I just give them what to expect weeks 1 and 2, weeks 3 and 4, 5 through 10, 11 and 12. And then when we go to a week-to-week schedule after the initial podcast launch, again, this is going to vary from person to person depending on what you're doing. Yours is going to look completely different. If you're a graphic designer doing logos, you're not doing something like this, but you might put specific dates on here are even better if you can work those out with a client, when they can expect the first draft, when they can expect the final thing, the final file delivery, how many days is it going to take between this and that for revisions. Just make sure you put as much detail in here as you can just to set expectations properly. You're going to hear me say this so many times in this video. Expectations are crucial, especially at the very beginning of the relationship, especially before you've begun things, so that they're not getting into this project expecting one thing and then getting something else. Now to number 4, which is payment terms. This section has a few things in it. First of all is the pricing for the project. This is going to adjust depending on the client. This is just kind of the template I launched from. In this situation, when I'm closing a client through a sales call and the follow-up there, I'm actually taking a 50% deposit. Then I'm sending this client agreement. And just to clarify, if at any point they decided to back out from here, I would fully refund that deposit. But that deposit signifies to me that they are ready to move forward. They're not going to drag their feet. It's time to go. And I don't want to waste my time with someone who's just going to drag their feet. So as soon as the deposit is sent, I send this client agreement. It lays out how much has been paid and how much is due now. And then after we finish the first 10 episodes, which is a little bit complicated from my workflow compared to a lot of people's, after we finish the first 10 episodes, then on episode 11, when we start that production, then we move to the monthly retainer for that client. So just make sure you list out any sort of pricing line items in here, however you price your projects, or estimates if you're doing hourly, which I don't suggest doing hourly. I have another video on pricing if you need to go back and review that and why I don't do hourly pricing. But there's also the payment schedule. This goes down here and just tells them when to expect certain payments, when payments are due. Acceptable payment methods. This just tells them what payment methods will I accept. And this is important if you don't accept all payment methods or if you're limited to certain things. Like on the recurring monthly retainer payments, we only accept credit and debit cards because we do auto bill. Because I don't want to be sending invoices every month and chasing down payments. I want that billed every single month, the exact same day of every single month without fail. I want to make sure that my company is getting paid so that I can pay my team. Then there's a section on refunds. What qualifies for a refund? When are refunds allowed? When are they not allowed? When are we too late to go on a refund? Just put all of those things down there. Hidden fees. I like just putting this in here because we don't have hidden fees, but it's good to just address that because some people are like, where are they going to get me in the future? And then we get to section number 5. Must have section number 5 is usage rights. So depending on what you do, if you're a creative, you're a creator, whether you're creating logos or you're a wedding photographer, a videographer, or you're a music producer, you're creating something, whether it's music or art or logos. And so now you have to put a section in here that determines who owns the thing that you create. Now, if you're working with really unsophisticated business owners, you're a logo creator working with small local businesses, or you're a music producer working with local bands, typically you're going to create something and then they're paying you for that, and then you're just going to give them that, and they own the rights to that. But in a lot of cases, like especially wedding photography is a big one, the person who creates the photos in the wedding photography business typically owns the rights to those photos. And you'll see in most client agreements that wedding photographers have, the wedding photographer retains the rights to the photos, and that's despite getting paid thousands of dollars to shoot that photo. That's just the way it works in the industry in most cases. So however you run your business, I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm just making sure that you put that in plain English so that your clients understand. And it helps if you're the type of person that retains the rights to the things you're creating, it helps to put an explanation of why that is. When our wedding photographer in our wedding explained that to us, we didn't care. We were completely fine with that. We have our wedding photos in the house. We have them hung up on the wall. We have a nice book printed with all the photos in it. That's all we need. We don't need to publish it in a magazine. We don't need to have the rights to the photos. That is perfectly fine for our photographer to retain the rights to that. So in here, we just put this, we keep it simple. We give them their rights, our rights, and then we also put down here credit requirements. So for our clients, we require that they put a credit for our work as the podcast production company in the outro of each episode, and then on the podcast show notes page of every episode. And that helps us get referrals and new eyeballs on our business for every single episode. I'll tell you my background in music production. It's so damn hard to get the client to promote you as the music producer. And so this is the place that you would say in your music video, in the YouTube description or the Facebook post or the Instagram post, we want to be tagged or we want to be linked to or credited for the work. If you put this in the client agreement, you are much more likely to get credited if you just simply ask and then have them sign an agreement that they will do it. The next section, and this is the final section of the must-have sections, is the cancellation policy. What happens if they cancel? What happens if you cancel? This is especially important for like recurring when you have a monthly retainer, but also like if you're in the middle of a project with a client and they cancel, what happens? So I put that in here. It's just a short paragraph. It's straightforward, plain English. There's no crazy legalese or jargon or capital letters in here. We just keep this as simple as possible. And we try to put this from the perspective of what's the most fair way to do things. And if you think through it that way, most of the time, the client will be happy to sign this sort of agreement. So that's the 6 sections. The 7th section is just a call to action. This is kind of a bonus. Always have a call to action for next steps. And in here, we just have step 1, step 2, step 3, what to expect from here. And then they can sign their name, they can type it out, and then they hit accept, and they've accepted the agreement. So the cool thing about that tool that I just showed is that once they sign the agreement, they can actually pay the remaining balance through that tool so that I can collect my remaining balance and we can start the relationship off without having to think about money, without having to talk about money. I'm all paid up and we can just focus on the relationship from that point on. So if you want a copy of this, the template, the tool that I use to send this out to clients and to create this, just go to sixfigurecreative.com/agreement and you can get all of that there. And I'll also, if you haven't already gotten this, I'll also send you my free onboarding guide. It's a 5-part guide on how to actually onboard a client in a really effective, cool way that, again, sets things off on the right foot so that your client is impressed with you from the very, very start. Now, I want to hear back from you if you're still watching this video. Do you currently send a client agreement? And if so, how does this compare, the one you just saw? How does this video compare to the one that you have been sending your clients? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching this video.